Do you support the Prime Minister's decision to veto the Northern Gateway pipeline, Mr. Carney?
I understand the veto of the Northern Gateway pipeline.
You support it?
Given both environmental and commercial reasons.
Do you support it?
I think it is sensible. I wasn't involved in the decision, but I think it was the right decision.
And yet your company has invested billions of dollars in oil companies in both Brazil and the UAE to buy pipelines. You bought billions of dollars of pipelines as a company in the last 5 years. Do you support those investments?
Mr. Poilievre, there is a global energy system, and one of the issues, I'm trying to explain a bit of how the economy works. One of the
Thank
issues,
you so much.
It may help. One of the issues for this committee in thinking about a sustainable transition.
Do you support it?
Where is Canada's role in those as energy transitions from fossil fuels to renewables? And in different jurisdictions, into different geography, it matters. Okay. And this is a fundamental point.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. This is a fundamental. You're finally getting to a point.
You've exceeded
the
time.
Is relevant to this committee's inquiry.
What you're saying is you oppose pipelines in Canada, but you support them in the UAE and in Brazil. That's what you've actually said.
There are specific.
That's your double standard.
It is not a double standard.
It is a double standard.
No, it's not.
You make billions of dollars off foreign pipelines, and you shut them down here at home, putting our people out of work.
That's my choice for leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, Pierre Poilievre, grilling Marc Carney, the former banker in the UK, now coming back to Canada. I think he's going to throw his hat into the ring pretty quick as a Trudeau Liberal. I don't think Carney had ever been asked tough questions before in his life. And I don't think he did a good job. He, of course, supports shutting down pipelines in Canada in the name of climate, you see, but his company believes in building pipelines for OPEC countries. Well, he's not the only one in that globalist world who hates ethical oil in liberal democracies, but supports them in unfree or partially free countries. I want to bring your attention to an article in one of my favorite go-to places for info on climate and global warming. I'm talking about climatedepot.com. It was originally published in Fox News. It's by DeRoy Murdoch, who has such a cheeky headline. He says, "Is Joe Biden a Russian asset? Trump's hard-won energy independence is gone." And joining me now to talk about this is the publisher of Climate Depot, our friend Marc Morano. Marc, great to see you. I know that DeRoy Murdoch means that sort of tongue-in-cheek, but really, if Joe Biden were a Russian asset, shutting down pipelines, stopping drilling in Alaska, long waiting lines for gas stations across America, it would be tough to see the difference between Biden, who was under the thrall of Putin and Russia, and the Biden we have in charge today.
No, it wouldn't. And that's a great headline and a great thing by Murdoch. I mean, that's exactly they asked if Donald Trump was involved in Russia collusion based on a joke about Hillary Clinton's email hacking. And that started the whole investigation. And here we have actual, this is actual work that Russians couldn't have planted if they had an asset to do better work than this, to shut down American domestic energy. And of course, Russia will be benefiting. And you could also say, is he a Chinese asset on the same level? Because as we're shutting down our domestic energy, we're going to be ramping up, of course, all the rare earth mining and minerals for the solar and wind mandates. And of course, China is set. So this has probably been the greatest 6 months actually, if you want to go 18 months since the start of the pandemic, that's probably the greatest time in China's history. And I'm talking about China's long history. Never has China been more strengthened and their goals achieved in the last 18 months with the global lockdowns and COVID, and now Joe Biden's election and the even more hammering of the United States. But Russia is also going to be benefiting greatly from these policies.
Yeah, I mean, I think it couldn't be clearer. Joe Biden approving the Nord Stream pipeline that really makes Europe dependent on Gazprom, which is, of course, a strategic company. That's the title. It's owned 50% by the Kremlin, but strategic in that any foreign contracts it signs have to be approved by the Kremlin. And historically, the Kremlin has turned on and off the gas to punish customers for political. I mean, Ukraine is a perfect example. They shut off the gas several times in the cold of winter. Pricing, if someone supports Russia politically, they get cheaper gas. If they oppose Russia, it's more expensive gas. I'm not some conspiracy theorist about how Russia's evil. Russia's evil. I don't think Russia is friendly. I think they're authoritarian and half free, half unfree. But I can see what they're doing with Gazprom. Here's Joe Biden explaining why he doesn't have a problem giving Nord Stream 2 pipeline the green light. Take a look.
Why have you decided to meet with President Putin? And why are you letting Germany and Russia to continue building Nord Stream 2?
Because it's almost completely finished, number one. The idea that anything that, and it's not like I can allow Germany to do something now. I have been opposed to Nord Stream 2 from the beginning, but it only has, it's almost completed by the time I took office. And to go ahead and impose sanctions now would, I think, be counterproductive in terms of our European relations. They know how strongly I feel, and I hope we can work on how they handle it from this point on.
Mark, I wish Joe Biden were as supportive of American pipelines and American jobs, and I mean, the Keystone XL pipeline was nearly completed. Those are the reasons he's supporting Russia's pipeline. How can he, is there no cognitive dissonance for a guy who supports Russian pipelines but shuts down American pipelines?
It just makes absolutely no strategic sense, economic sense, domestic energy strategy sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. And even in the Colonial Pipeline, which they said was hacked, the Biden administration was kind of like, oh, well, that's up to them. They weren't even interested in helping a major pipeline or investigate who hacked them. And, this is one legitimate function of the government is to actually investigate. But you're right. Allowing Russia to do this. I was in Poland actually 3 times for 3 separate United Nations conferences over the last 15 years. The most recent one in Poland, we actually had an alternative UN summit, and it was all about like what you're talking about, the Russians punishing people, very similar to the way in lockdown America, Canada, around the world. If you don't go along, you're the ones that get punished and with their policies, and you get the extra punishment from it. But Poland does not want to give up their coal mines for the exact reason that they don't want to have to rely more and more on Russian energy because they know what it's like. I don't know how Joe Biden has this cognitive dissonance. You just wish that he would have the same domestic energy policy that he's allowing and pushing for Russia to have in Europe. It's crazy. But I think on a separate note, within 6 months of just Joe Biden, everything President Trump had done is just being washed away. We were the world's largest oil and gas producer. We had the biggest, more energy exports than imports for the first time since Harry Truman was president. We were sitting pretty. And then this comes along, and as we hammer ourselves, we're opening up China and Russia, and with the pipeline in Europe, it's just an incredible thing how this is benefiting Russia.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.